Today I wanted to talk about how what seems to be mundane activities and guidelines here at the Abbey can be powerful mind training practices. I know that I can get pretty complacent about the guidelines, taking the things for granted, not really watching how I do what I do, what the purpose for a lot of our guidelines and trainings, and how we can use them to transform our minds. Sometimes I just totally space out and don't see the importance of them. And how these trainings impact the world by what we do here. There's kind of a ripple effect on how we train here at the Abbey. Small picture, big picture. So today I wanted to talk about our guidelines about water. In this part of the United States, we usually have some, pretty wet winters and dry seasons. But as the climate change is happening, our winters get warmer and shorter, and our summers get longer and drier. We have very clear guidelines on how to live in community that pays attention to this finite resource. And nowadays it seems more than ever important that we really watch how we use the water here. How we shower, how we flush the toilet, brush our teeth, recycle kitchen water, wash the dishes, water the gardens, not water the lawn. Because all of this matters in the long term as far as our contribution to depleting the aquifer that we live in underneath the ground, that we live on. And because here we have a well and we have a septic system, we personally have a much closer contact to how the water comes out of the sky, where it goes. Every time the well pump runs, you can hear it, so you know when the water is kicking in while we're taking from the resources. And that since we have more and more people coming, our impact on the aquifer becomes more important to monitor. But it's tricky and subtle because it keeps coming out of the tap. It seems to be so abundant and it's just so delicious that mind training and Dharma practice such as consideration for others, dependent arising, impermanence, become crucial and worthwhile practices. In fact, in my mind, it becomes an ethical issue. How much water we use as a community when all the fresh water on earth is to be shared by all beings. It's not our water. And a lot of times I forget this. So recently there was an article, in fact this past week there's a recent article in the Christian Science Monitor that brought this very close back into my mind, back home in a very direct way, and really getting me to recommit to my practice about my mindfulness in regard to water use here at the Abbey. The article talks about Cape Town, South Africa, which is the largest city in South Africa, is running out of water. This isn't some fantasy in the future. It's happening right now. There are about 3.5 million people being affected after 3 years of the driest years on record, which has resulted in giving them the dubious distinction of being probably the first developed city in the world to run out of water. There is a possibility of day zero where all the taps in the city will be shut off indefinitely. What I found most compelling about the article is that this water crisis has brought all of the Cape Towners into one community crisis regardless of race, wealth, status, or position. And in the article they shared 2 women's lives. One of them, her name is Helen. She's a white woman who lives in a gated, manicured community surrounded by beautiful mountains. And then 20 miles away, there's Musa, who is a poor black woman who lives in a tiny 2-room tin house tucked into those hillsides. 2 very different universes, culturally and economically, but right now, very close in experience. Now Musa, the poor black woman who lives tucked into the mountainside, all of her life she has walked twice a day to the community spigot to get water to wash her clothes, cook, keep her house clean, feed her kids, take care of things. But for Helen has never given it one thought. Now all of suburbia in Cape Town is taking 90-second showers using the excess to flush toilets. They're permitted 13 gallons per person per day, which is basically 4 toilet flushes to cover everything. More than that, the city reduces it to a trickle if you go over that, and that payment could become a mortgage payment if you really push the envelope. What this did right now for the citizens of South Africa, which is still considered to be many ways the most unequal country in the world, water restrictions have had a very powerful, subtle effect on the community of the city. It has given the rich and the wealthy of Cape Town a very small but rare experience of how the poor in their city have gotten by for decades. Helen admits, she's a suburban housewife, that she finds it humbling to think how many South African people have lived like this for a long time. With the water crisis, her household chores are like take 3 times as long, take 3 times as much thought. She admits, I can't believe I've been peeing into clean drinking water all my life. What a waste. And at the same time, Musa says we have lived like this all of our lives. This drought hasn't affected us. We have the same little amount of water. It goes, I have to do all of this and recycle it and do the best I can. If rich people could understand what it's like, even for a little bit, I think it's a good thing. Some activists are observing, however. Now, the big issue for government officials and activists as this water crisis accelerates is to make sure that the shared resource, what water there is, gets divided equally among the different townships and populations in the city. And even though Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu have done incredible amounts of work and energy and focus and activism to be able to bring apartheid to its end, the crisis still shows very, very clearly that water access is a legacy of apartheid. Outskirts where the poor and black citizens live, the infrastructures are really poor and crumbling. Where the white and wealthy are, tend to have very good infrastructures. So some activists are observing that a certain group of people struggling to access water seems normal. All right, so poor black people, this has been their issue for decades. It's normal. However, with this crisis now, the wealthy white people are having the same issue, and it's become a serious, serious crisis that must be dealt with immediately. And the fear is that once this crisis is dealt with, it will be business as usual. So from a Dharma perspective, I want to bring this into my practice, this incredible thing that's unfolding right at this moment, is to realize how ingrained our self-centered thought and our ignorance is. And it sees the happiness of the inherently existent I as being the most important. What is needed, and where I come back around to our training, is, as one social activist says, water is a social justice issue. Water going to golf courses, swimming pools, water slides. This is a social justice issue. It's a change of mind to see water as a precious, finite resource to be shared equally, rather than how can I be comfortable, how can I get what I want. Right now at the Abbey we have plenty of water, so it's a powerful mind training teaching on impermanence, dependent arising. The kindness that we can offer, consideration for others, ethical conduct, how we use the water, it becomes an ethical issue. The folks at Cape Town never thought that they would run out of water, ever. It wasn't even on their radar screen. Do we ever think that that might happen to us? Or that our usage affects the overall share of water on the planet? So right now the Nature Conservancy has done a little bit of a study, and they have recognized 10 cities on this planet within the next 25 to 30 years could run out of water. And guess who has 3 cities on that list? Los Angeles, number 1. San Diego number 5, and Phoenix number 8. So what wisdom would it take to broaden our perspective for not just these folks to sort of wake up and sort of take care of each other, but for all of us to voluntarily train our minds to think of the truth that the water is finite, that its existence depends on causes and conditions, that it's an impermanent phenomenon. And out of consideration for all living beings, to deepen our commitment here at the Abbey, to be a role model on how to really continue our wise use and how to practice a way of relating to water as this precious, impermanent, finite phenomenon, so that we can honestly state that we contribute to the well-being of all. And to encourage our families and friends, just to really get on board, because they live in the big cities, they live outside where there's plenty of water coming out of the tap. With this mindfulness practice, it's actually a kindness practice. It's actually a practice in ethical conduct around this precious finite resource that each living being requires to live. There's no option here. When it's gone, we're done. So I've really been able to take this incident in Cape Town on the other side of the world to just really commit, to notice in the course of the past 2 days since I read the article, to see how I mindlessly keep the water running when I'm brushing my teeth. I take a little bit longer shower. I just look at, just watering the sidewalk, cleaning the sidewalk. Is that we have to really make this a profound mindfulness practice so that we can contribute to sustaining the aquifer here, and in a longer term to really, do a ripple effect and keep the water, safe and potable for all living beings, not just us, not humans, but also non-humans as well. So it was a really wonderful teaching on dependent arising and also the consideration for others for me.